Ian, you've been a long-term advocate for mental health. Please tell us about what you've been doing with the Brain and Mind Research Institute.
Well, the Brain and Mind Research Institute is a unique development of the University of Sydney, bringing together clinical scientists, basic scientists, working in an environment where they do research, but they help people at the same time, particularly young people with emerging mental health problems and those then who go on to have significant anxiety, depression or psychotic disorders. But it's a unique development in Australia of trying to provide a great service, but at the same time take the field forward in terms of new learnings, new opportunities.
Mental health seems like it has a huge stigma around it. People are still reluctant to talk about it, yet it seems like it is an issue, or that mental health issues are prevalent in the community. Are they? And what are they costing us?
Mental health problems are incredibly common, and the stigma's changing. It is changing, particularly here in Australia, but we have so much further to go. 27% of all health-related disability costs in this country are due to mental health and substance abuse. 60% of disability costs in 15 to 34-year-olds. If you want to know why young Australians are not at work, they're not at school, they're not at university, they're not going out to their jobs every day, it's mental health and substance abuse related problems. So if you care about productivity in this country, if you care about the future in this country, if you care about the future, it's going to be about mental health. If you're smart about the business of what's going to work in Australia, where we're going to make a difference, you'll be thinking about mental health. On the one hand, making it better so that we can all do better cognitively, emotionally, behaviourally, productivity-wise. And in terms of preventing costs that are preventable, you'll also be thinking about mental health.
So what can workplaces do?
Workplaces are the big social areas that we have in our society, the big communities outside of our own families. They are the places where people genuinely interact with each other and can support each other in a way that is productive. You don't get well to go to work. You go to work to get well. Work is so fundamental to being well, and the workplace you're in makes such a difference as to whether you are mentally well and competent and productive and cognitively and behaviourally on top of your game. So being in work is critical in the first place, but the quality of work you do and the quality of the relationships you have at work are absolutely critical to how good your life is. Now, once people know that, you then start to think about, well, how can I make the workplace better? Just like, how do I make my own family better? How do I make the community I live in better? We all talk about, in a sense, the sustainability of the community outside. You know, we talk about it in energy or physical terms. What we should talk about is the sustainability of the communities we actually work in every day. Because, you know, other than our families, they are the most important aspect of the community that we interact with every day that keeps us well and keeps us productive. I always laugh when people say they want to quit their job, they want to go retire to beach the Gold Coast. It's nonsense. They'll get depressed and they'll die. You know, if you want to be well and feel great and feel productive, you go to work, and if your work is great, and by that, people often mean the workplace as much as the work that they do. It's the people, it's the environment, they thrive on it. Then they will be very productive in those environments and they'll be mentally healthy.
So what are the major mental health problems in the country?
Top of the list are threefold: anxiety, depression, alcohol and substance abuse. So depression's probably the most common one that we recognise, affecting about 800,000 Australian adults every year. More women than men will report depression and anxiety. More men than women will report alcohol and substance abuse. You add up the lot, you get about the same number of men and women every year. About 1 in 5 Australian adults in any 12-month period will have a mental health problem that is severe enough to need to get help. Or to put it the other way around, 1 in 5 are going to struggle to hold their job, be productive, function in their family due to a mental health problem. So it's common, but it's also serious. So it's important to kind of get that idea right. You're going to run into it every day in your workplace or in your family over the course of a year. So that commonality does not, however, make it trivial. It means that people you know right now are struggling. They're struggling to maintain their relationships. They're probably struggling to come to work. Even if they're at work, they're probably struggling to be productive. What everyone else does around a person who's struggling makes such a difference to whether they actually get help, whether they're able to continue in employment, whether they're able to return to being productive. Like a lot of health, we tend to say, oh, I'm sort of your problem, you know, and we really don't wish to have the problem ourselves. We hope you get it sorted out. So we often wish people well. In the mental health area, we need to do more than wish people well. Often we need to actually support them because they may never have sought a service before for a mental health problem. They may be embarrassed. These are still not easy areas to talk about in terms of getting health. In the rest of health, we say to people, all the time, you've got trouble with your leg, I know a great surgeon. If you've you recently got cancer, I know a great hospital to go to. If you've got problems and you need a hip replacement, we help each other, we trade information. We don't tend to trade that information nearly so much, and yet people don't know in mental health. So now if you go and ask the Australian community, they say, look, I know mental health's important, but I don't really know where to go. And I certainly don't know where the best mental health service is. We all know where the best children's hospital is, or who's the best surgeon, or who's the gynaecologist down the road, or where to get this particular problem sorted out. Many people don't know in mental health that key piece of information, where to go, what style of help, and in what way would it help? How do I get that kind of assistance? So that's the sort of information that can be traded in your family, but in your workplace, in your community, all the time.
So Ian, what can we do? What treatments are available and where can people go to get that help?
Well, the important thing to say is that most mental health problems can be effectively treated. If there's one really bad thing about the stigma of the past around mental health problems, was the idea that they were untreatable. And if you got one, you had it for life and you never recovered. It's so far from the truth. The majority of people, particularly if they go early for treatment, when the problem's there early rather than 20 years later, will get effective treatments, often counselling, psychological support, seeing psychologists, sometimes additional medication when things are severe or complicated on an ongoing basis, providing those sorts of appropriate treatments that for the great majority of people work very well. They don't work often in a day or a week. They're not a course of antibiotics for a brief infection. They're more serious than that. But just like managing diabetes or managing arthritis or managing asthma, managing those other serious common problems, that's what it's like to manage depression or anxiety or related substance abuse. It takes effort, it takes information, it takes support when you're receiving treatment to get it right for the weeks or months it might take to really get back on top of your game.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for your time.